Hi, my name is Randall Borden, and I have with me today Mr. Dante Royster. He's a mortgage broker based out of Illinois, but you are licensed in nine other states in addition to that, right? So
Yep,
cover the whole spectrum. I think you go all the way down to Texas, right? I saw
that's
that,
correct.
in your webpage. All right, so and then what you do is residential mortgages, commercial, the whole gamut, or what?
Residential is defined as far as the dictionary definition is 1 to 4 units. Currently, right now, I'm dealing with units up to 10 units.
Hmm.
So any type of mini, small 6 unit building, 8 unit building, 10 unit building, I could still handle, which would
Okay.
be defined as commercial. So I would say I do a little bit of commercial, but obviously majority of my business is residential.
Okay. And then mostly owner occupied, homeowners.
Actually, no, no. I mean,
Oh,
really,
okay.
there's been a recent change just in the marketplace. I would say the pandemic kind of, set us on a new little journey. So we've been doing a lot of deals with investors as
Huh.
well as first-time home buyers and people looking to upgrade, all that type of stuff.
The pandemic was a real shock for landlord-tenant law.
Mhm.
Uh, I practice in Maryland and Virginia, and both of those states significantly tilted the dial over in favor of tenants.
Sure.
And so there's quite a lot of landlords that just said, they've had enough and they were getting out. And in fact, I got out of landlord tenant law because it became so many minefields and more of a specialty than what used to be just a general practice. You could sort of do one or two a month on the side, but yeah, not anymore. That's interesting to hear. And then the interest rates, of course, went crazy low, so everybody started to buy their houses, and then the inflation hit, so that drove out a lot more of the investors. So.
Yeah, it's definitely is I would say it's definitely been turbulent, right? That's a
Mhm.
fair word to say. Obviously we're licensed in Maryland and Virginia.
Oh, okay.
And so what I've seen investors do as when you say investor, in my mind, that means someone that actually is doing this as a full-time job.
Oh,
So
okay, right, yeah.
this is not just yeah, this is not just
Uh-huh.
a one-off situation. So what I've seen them pivot to is more of the fix and flip renovation loans.
Oh,
So,
that, yes.
so buying a property, renovating it, and then selling it is still
Mhm.
something that's prominent, and we offer that type of product and program.
Yeah, yeah. Around the older established neighborhoods with the older people that haven't, kids moved out, they haven't maintained their house. Yeah, that is and the continuous mailing of cards and to try to find the right property, and
Sure.
the 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 initial purchase offers that are, full price, and then once they come in and see
Yes.
the house. Yeah, but that is a big market here too. Okay, and then so my practice is family law, and
Hmm.
kind of what I wanted to ask you about or talk to you about was how or what is the way to minimize the damage of a divorce when you have a husband and wife, living in a house, and obviously one has to move out. There usually are kids. Usually the mother wants to stay, keep the kids. The father usually wants to move out for whatever personal reasons, or and then the mother just can't do it. I mean, even with child support and spousal support, there's she can't make that mortgage payment, even if the husband is willing to, let the old mortgage stay in place. My recommendations have always, well, first off, as soon as they call me, we have the initial consultation. What are your goals? What's your income? What's your house? How much is it worth? How big's your mortgage? What's your mortgage payment? And is your goal realistic? What's your plan on keeping that house, keeping the kids? Here's your child support, this much. You might get alimony, but you might only get it for a short period of time. It's not going to work. So what's your plan? Friends, family, relatives, sell it, buy a smaller place. Again, you're probably going to be moving out of the school district. I mean, one of the things that I've seen a few times would be a co-ownership arrangement, either with an outside investor or with a family member that would buy half the house and help with the payments in exchange for a larger chunk of return when it's eventually sold. But Do
Sure.
you have any magic solution in that
No,
scenario?
I mean, actually, you were kind of naming them. I do have a question just so I can have this as a better answer.
Mm.
What would you say is the average timeline for a divorce? Like, are you
No,
seeing people
one
divorcing
year.
in 1 year?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
from when it's filed to when it's decided, at least in Virginia, the courts keep it on that 1 year track. And
Okay.
they're very strict on that. Again, you need to pay me a lot of money up front because I have to get started right away, even
Sure.
though 12 months sounds like forever. It really isn't. Maryland will let you drag it out a little bit more. And
Sure.
even some of the courts in Maryland are so backed up, they have to set it out, 2 years or whatever. But yeah, pretty
But
much
but what about as far as husband and wife? How long had they been married before the divorce, kind of gets to that point? How long
well,
have they been married on average?
with no kids, it's
Hmm.
maybe 5 years. They, they
Okay.
they figure it out. They can't stand each other. In that scenario, they're usually both have income, good income, and they usually both have the ability to keep the house, to deal with the house. So that's usually not that much of a problem. One of them can afford to buy out the other one. And then, but as far as with the husband and wife, you usually see it anywhere from 10 to 15 years. The children are a little bit older, and whichever parent initiates a divorce does the horrible mental calculations of the kids can absorb the trauma, and now's the time to pull the ripcord on the parachute. The good news financially is if they've owned the house the whole time, they've got some equity in there.
Equity. Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
so that might be a way for, even a second investor, friends and family, probably the one that I try to stress the most, or simply sell it and buy a rent or buy a condominium. So,
Yeah, the harder part is obviously the first one that you talked of. A ladder
mm,
makes some more sense. So if they've had a property for 10 to 15 years,
right.
like you said, they've probably, are close to 50% of the balance of their mortgage is probably paid off. So there's
Mhm.
a little bit of wiggle room that can make sense for even an investor to jump in or what have you. The
Right.
harder one is obviously that first one because, just like you said, when we talked about the pandemic, if we're bringing it back 2019, 2020, someone
Mhm.
bought a property, obviously, like you said, rates were just, 2,
Yeah.
3%. And then now we're in this day and age where rates are now 6, 7%. I mean, that's the huge increase that really people can't afford the adjustment period. So
Mhm.
even in your scenario where, okay, wife wants to stay on, you know, did they do a joint mortgage? Meaning,
Yeah.
did a borrower and co-borrower come together? Because that's a major issue at times because now you're losing one income. Can you afford it on your own? Or
Right.
did the primary wage earner do
Mhm.
it by themselves, and the co-borrower either, a housemaker, takes care of the
Right.
kids or doesn't make enough money to qualify on it. So what do you do when rates are now, like I said, 6, 7%? So yeah,
Right.
those are major issues where, they're probably, even though they love the school district, right? Their kids
That's
are
it.
so happy, they're
Mhm.
still going to have to probably look to sell would
Right.
be the most makes the most sense. And then, look to rent and maybe, just regather themselves.
And get rid of the household pet because the landlord won't take the dog. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
That's
mean, those are tough situations. I mean, obviously, a divorce, what we talk about in the mortgage business is when do people feel the need to have a conversation with me? And divorce is one of those topics. We talk about
right.
when people get diplomas, degrees, when diapers come into place, when
Uh-huh.
people have kids.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of D's going on here, but
Right. Right. Mhm.
obviously divorce is a situation, obviously we look to try to help out with a refinance if there's enough equity so we can pay
Mhm.
off the spouse, the ex-spouse that's looking to leave.
Right.
But, if there's no equity, I mean, there's not too much we can do, obviously, in
Mhm.
that front.
In that scenario, I refer, and again, this is initial consultation.
Sure.
What are your goals? How realistic are they? What is your child support going to be? What is your chances of getting spousal support? And how much and how long is it going to last?
Sure.
And so I try to refer them to a mortgage broker. What is my house worth? I don't know. Well, when was the last time you fixed it up? Well, 20 years ago. Well, chances are it's not worth the Zillow value. So you may want to get a home inspection. I have a good lawyer friend who's a real estate settlement attorney. So I refer them to her if they have any specific questions like how the house is titled and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's just the numbers are not going to work no matter how you slice it and dice it, unless you can bring in the sister who's going to live in the house and pay half the mortgage, or like I said, the parents who can provide $100,000 to buy out the husband or something like that, and keep the 2% mortgage on the house, so that the wife can or ex-wife can afford it.
Yeah, it's not funny, but it is interesting, I would say, in nature that when we had the environment of low interest rates,
Mhm.
there was a lot of independence amongst everyone because you can really just flow by yourself.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
could be an individual, buy a house, kind of fell around the Me Too
Right.
movement, just independent woman. And now with rates being higher, I'm seeing more collaboration
Mhm.
is necessary. Partnerships have to be, even if it's, hey, I'm single. Well, we got to have a partner because, just with the cost of housing, the appreciation that has
Yeah.
occurred, and then with the interest rates
Mhm.
as well, I mean, interest rates basically have doubled, to some degree. And so that's been a major play where we've had to bring people back. Like, I understand you want to do it by yourself, but you really need to have a partner in crime to, come together to make
Mhm.
this happen.
Mhm. Yep. And I also tell them to consider tenants, whether they can bring those in that get at least a source of income,
Sure.
somebody decent that can live in the basement, go in and out of the basement door. What's the setup of your house? What's your configuration? Will it work? Will it won't work? Do you have a really good friend who wants to move to this area, and this would be their chance to have a house, at for the rent of an apartment, right? A great opportunity for them.
Definitely.
Anything, just shake the bushes and see what you can come up with.
In my practice, I've seen a huge increase in just multifamily homes, right? Two-unit dwellings. Your area, that might be something definitely to consider.
No, we
Uh,
don't have a lot of those.
okay.
I mean, we'll have regular townhouses. So what I'm talking about with tenants is,
Room rents.
yeah, roommates. Somebody just moves
Yeah.
in, maybe you block off the door to the basement or something like that.
Well,
And
actually, I have a client that would fit right exactly in your example where he is divorced.
Mhm.
And so he has a four-bedroom, two-bath home.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, it's kind of too big, but he's got a 2% interest rate. And so
Right.
he doesn't want to let it go. So what he ended
Mhm.
up doing was renting out the rooms. So he was doing
Right.
room
Right.
rent on the other three rooms and then said, hey, this is the community shared bathroom.
Mhm.
And, pay me a weekly thing. And he started getting travel nurses and he
Right.
started
Right.
getting, just people that were kind of, coming in and out of town for whatever particular reason, and
Mhm.
it's worked for him. And he's actually developed a business on a single family house. Another thing that has been a topic, you see this more in the South, especially like I'm thinking of Georgia in my head, even
Mhm.
Texas, but they're called ADUs.
Oh yeah, granny flats.
Yes, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have the space with the square footage, I mean that's another consideration where you
Mhm.
can, add on maybe
Right.
to some acres in the backyard or some sort, or on top of a garage, and look to
Mhm.
do some rents to offset the costs.
Right. Now, this would be coming to you. That income would not be there. I mean, the coming to you, they would still be together. They'd still be in the same house. Both of them agree on a divorce, and they're trying to configure what to do with the house. Could the mother with the kids get a mortgage based on that potential future rental income?
No, you're correct. No, I can't use future income. That has to be already established with a 2-year history of that
Ah,
income. And
wow.
so,
Okay.
so that does put a
Yeah.
little bit, these are things like you're saying, this is about
Mhm.
planning. This is about planning it out
Right.
and saying,
Right.
hey, there might be, obviously, hey, I want to get a divorce, but you might have to plan out the divorce a little bit longer and say, hey, this is what we're going to have to do to
Right.
make this work. Sometimes what I've noticed is, it's such a, they're looking for a quick fix. I want to be done.
I want to get rid of him.
Exactly. And it's like, I understand that, but
Mhm.
we're going to have to, mediate a little bit and calm down, set up a
Right. Right.
plan because financially it's not going to be as simple as people think.
Well, it actually could be if they can get along. Both in Maryland and Virginia, you can
Mhm.
draft an agreement. Maryland calls it a marital separation agreement, MSA. Virginia calls it a property settlement agreement, and it can handle all of this. So with children, custody, visitation, child support, spouse support, assets, debts, and once where it can handle just a few of those and you could litigate the rest. But anyway, as far as solving the house problem, you could put it there and that father agrees to rent the house to the mother for 2 years, right?
Mhm.
And during which time father moves out, mother can't sue him for desertion and abandonment. That's why they stay together until they get a solution. Whenever people ask me what the easiest, cheapest, quickest, fastest way is with an agreement. And the agreement says, I promise not to sue you for adultery. So they can start dating other people. I promise not to sue you for desertion and abandonment. So you can actually get essentially a no fault divorce or an uncontested divorce because everything's right there and solved in the agreement. The agreement literally becomes part of the divorce order. Literally goes underneath of where the judge signs. If something like that, then 2 years, dad moves out, mother stays, rents the place out, gets her 2 years of rent flow, and then she could finance dad out. Then she could buy the house.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, the planning, it's necessary to plan. I have another example. You're jogging my memory in Georgia. And one thing I would say for your audience is that, a lot of our strategies, it's really state based, because every state, as you're mentioning, hey, Maryland says this and Virginia
Right.
says this. Every state is different. In the state of Georgia, I had a divorcee. So they have a house. They got divorced. The husband allowed the wife to stay in there with the kids
Mhm.
until the house sells.
Right.
And he agreed to pay alimony. And so the alimony started, let's say, in February.
Mhm.
And so in the interim, she's looking to sell the house, take the proceeds, and then buy a new house.
All right.
And, but, some of our mortgage lending laws and rules don't necessarily go with all these state rules. So you have to have 12 months of proof of alimony in the state
Oh,
of
oh,
Georgia. And so I couldn't use that income.
right, right.
And so so even though they had a contract, they're going to sell their house, and she needs to get out of that house and buy a new house,
Mhm.
for her kids, and she wanted to stay in the same school district. We
Right,
ended up having to get her sister, as you referenced, like in Florida, to co-sign
right.
for a temporary period, and then we're going to look to refinance next year to remove the sister off. But
Mhm.
it's one of those goofy situations that it depends state to state on some of the
Right,
rules and regs that we can do and what
right,
income we can
right.
have. So it is
Huh.
interesting. Just, I mean, these situations occur. Husband and wife don't get along, and they're looking to separate. But it is a plan that we really have to, and they do have to kind of get along for it
Right.
might be a 2 year time frame. It may
Mhm.
not be as quickly as they wanted it to be, just because of the numbers. The numbers have definitely changed.
With the interest rates, yeah.
Hmm.
And of course to make that work from the get-go, you need to know the husband's goals and the husband's
Right.
plan and what he wants. He wants to take the money from the house and buy a boat and sail in the Caribbean. He's not going to agree to any delays.
Yeah.
He's an auction of the house. Yeah.
Yeah, no, everyone's going to have to get along. I mean, that's going to be the name of the game. Everyone's going to have to kind of work together and say,
Mhm.
hey, I understand the end goal. Like you said, hey, what is your goal? Well, I
Yeah.
just want to get rid of her and I want to cut ties 100%. I understand that. But
Hmm.
you do,
Hmm.
you did the time, now you got to do the crime, so to
Right.
speak, where it's like,
Hmm.
you're married, you have kids. We're going to have to stretch this out a little bit longer than maybe you anticipated
Right.
because of these situations that are just economically don't make sense. Especially if you have the stay-at-home wife, you have the
Yeah.
husband, she is not financially prepared. She has no work history whatsoever to
Hmm.
even obtain, a mortgage. More times than not, she's going to, enter the workforce as an hourly employee, depending on her, her skill set.
Very
And that's
part-time. Yeah.
and I need 2 year history for part-time income or
Right.
overtime or commission. So it is things that people unfortunately are going to have to think about when they, want to go down that path.
In fact, and that's what I tell them. I said, I can tell you all about the law. I keep track. It changes. I monitor all that. I get the judges gossip and off, but this mortgage stuff, that's not me. So go find somebody, go talk to them. If they've got some weird title problem on their house, I refer them over to the real estate attorney. If they got too much debt, I refer them to a bankruptcy attorney. That's not me either. That's the name of the game. And of course, again, most of the time the people hate each other for a very good reason. Adultery,
Sure,
domestic violence, something squandering the money,
sure.
whatever, bad business, or just plain getting rid of it, alcoholism, drug abuse.
Sure.
Husband doesn't work, and that's why the mortgage is in foreclosure. But I want to buy it out. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want him out of the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
finances is a major thing. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
you touched on egregious things, right? You know,
Mhm.
adultery and alcoholism. I mean, those are egregious situations. But the main core of most divorces that I've seen is through finances. You
Mhm.
know, it's a spouse, husband and wife situation where they're not getting along. They're not seeing eye to eye what to do with the money. The financial goals are not aligned,
Mhm.
you know, deep down, and that starts to erode the relationship that they started.
Right.
Obviously, I just try to play my role as best I can,
Mhm.
but what are your goals is always a great question to start off with anything, you know, because making sure
Yeah.
like, and then, you know, and as you know this, I want to speak to both husband and wife,
Mhm.
you know, if you're
Right.
trying to
You have
buy a
to.
house
You have to.
because
Yeah.
there's different
Mhm.
goals, you know, and it's
Mhm.
like, hey, your wife said this, but now you're saying this. So which
Mhm.
one is it?
Right.
Because some people care more about payments.
Mhm.
Some people care more about how much money I need to bring to closing. You know, we try to find that happy median, but, you know, really bringing husband and wife together, asking those types of questions are important because the financial strain that a mortgage can cause, it could be the reason why we're talking about divorce.
Now, the mortgages, are they all 30-year fixed, or do you have that those old crazy countrywide mortgages where you $500 a month and then it jumps up to 3,000 a month?
We got rid of all the negative
Amortization.
amortization. We still have a little bit of interest only is out there, a
Mhm.
little pinch of 40-year mortgages.
Oh,
Primarily, everything is 30, but we really can we can really customize nowadays your mortgage. So there's kind of this belief. Let's just say you bought a house 2 years ago. You have 28 years left. And what I like to do really when we talk about mortgages, you know, talk about the payments. What is a mortgage? A mortgage is money, obviously, that helps you obtain a home. It's a debt obligation. And the debt obligation that you're making is that you're going to make 360 principal and interest payments on a
mhm.
30-year mortgage. So that's 30 times 12. So 360 payments. And so that is what you have to do. If you make 360, and I should say principal payments, then you pay off that mortgage. So the
Mhm.
quicker you pay off those principal payments, the less interest that you actually end up paying.
Right.
And so what we can do nowadays is like, for example, if you have 28 years left, all right, so that's going to take us down to 336 months. And so what we saw in the past is some people were going to do a refinance. And they were like, oh, but I got to start over again. And a lot of people are a little weary of that nowadays. They don't want to go
Mhm.
back from, man, I just paid 24 months of payments, and now you tell me I have to go back here. Now you do save more money if you do, but
Mhm.
we're able to basically keep you where you are at that 28 year and continue there and moving on.
No,
So
I see.
you don't have to go back to a 30 year if you don't want to. What I do notice about maybe I would say some of the millennials, some of the Gen Alphas that are now entering the marketplace,
Mhm.
they don't like debt. You know, they've seen their
Mhm.
parents go through the struggle and they're kind of like, no, I don't want any of that. So they're looking to aggressively pay this debt off as quickly as they can. We're looking at reducing term. You know,
Hmm.
so even though, hey, rates may be higher, if I can cut this term, if affordability is there, I mean, because that's
Right.
going to increase your payment, you know, $500 depending on the loan amount. If
Mhm.
I can cut your term maybe to a 20 year, maybe 25 year, maybe a 15 year, 10 year, these are things that people are considering because they
Mhm.
want to get rid of this debt as quickly as they can.
Right. And they've seen a lot of their friends that have the student loan debts
Sure,
that'll never be able to buy a house. So yeah,
sure.
they want to avoid that like a third rail. Financial advice tells people, make two payments a month instead of one payment a month and pay your mortgage down, that much faster. So yeah.
It goes again to what you were saying. It's what are your goals? You know,
Hmm.
like I say, and it's different too with every conversation. It depends on who I'm talking to. So if I'm talking to, let's say, a person that just has a house and they want to keep life simple, yes, it is being aggressive, paying off your mortgage as quickly as possible. But
Hmm.
then if I'm talking to an investor, entirely indifferent, right?
All
You know,
right.
what I mean, because, you
Cash
know,
flow.
100% cash flow. And I think what I've noticed, and I think some investors have noticed this too, it's hard to make moves on a month to month basis if you're only receiving just the monthly rental income. So what we've done a lot is doing these cash out refinances on investment properties because they're doing the leverage play. with the tenants are paying the mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the lump sum of money out so I can make my next play, in
Right.
really the monopoly game, buy the next
Mhm.
house.
Right.
Um,
Right.
because it was kind of interesting. I was a property manager for 10 years.
God bless you.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I learned a lot. But one of the things that was fascinating to me was most tenants think that if you own a second house, you're rich.
That's absolutely.
You're
You don't need to
rich.
rent. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're rich, so what are you doing? And the reality is no, they're not. And most people's cash flow is less than $1,000 on that property. And
Hmm.
so when you really break it down, buying one investment property is really not enough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really worth the headache.
Hmm.
And so it's really, trying to get that snowball effect of let's go get number two, let's get number
Hmm.
number three. Because if you can get to 5, 10 properties in
Right.
your portfolio, and
Hmm.
let's say you were making $800 per, well, now we're
Right.
talking $8,000 a month. Now that's pretty good income for you to say,
Right.
okay, it is worth it. And you can offset some of the costs. You can
Hmm.
offset some of the issues that may arise on one particular property and feel not always coming out of your pocket. And
Hmm.
so, so it's a different conversation depending on who I'm speaking to. I do understand some of the simplicities of the world of, hey, I just want no debt. I just want to pay everything off, keep everything the same. But there is advantages and growth of a new business and less
Right.
headaches if you go down the investment path.
Now, once you reach that 8,000 a month, that's as you say, that should be your full-time job.
Sure.
Another house, another property, and then just live off the rent. That's the strategy that's pretty good
Yeah.
if you can make it work. Yeah.
If you can. I mean, obviously, the mindset is still buy low, sell high.
Hmm.
And buying low doesn't necessarily mean buying off the MLS, right? You're not buying
Yeah.
off.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
so the name of the game are some of these dysfunctional situations, like a divorce, like a
Hmm.
death. These are situations where it's like, hey, not to be a vulture per se, but do you know the opportunity? Can you take advantage? Are you liquid enough to be able to say, hey, I know you could put it on the market and sell it for, 400,000,
Right.
but I have 250 in cash today and you don't have to fix this place up. If you have that wherewithal, that's a great opportunity for you
Right.
because you're walking in with instant equity.
And then what I see, what I've heard of, I mean, I'm not in the real estate business, is
Sure.
you get the full price purchase offer, hey, great, subject to inspection contingencies, and then all of which are priced at least twice of what you would normally pay, so next thing you know, they're taking $100,000 off your house, take it or leave it, and they've stretched out the settlement now, 2, 3 months down the road, and you're like, what are we going to do to put it back on the market? Reject the contract, put it back on the market for, it'll last another 2 or 3 months, and the condition doesn't get better, so you're
Correct.
still going to get a low ball offer. Just how low? A lot of times that works. The people will put in a what is it, a misleading, a Judas goat type of contract to lead the person in, and then they'll get the real price reduction on the inspection contingencies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
I
a
mean,
real
there's definitely gamemanship, right?
right.
And those are the unfortunate situations that you hate to hear about them, but it
Hmm.
does happen. And they're baiting you on a want versus a need. Because if
Right.
you need it, and you're like, man, we waited all this time and now he's reducing his number, but he's
Yeah.
ready to go today. Do
Hmm.
you just take it? And unfortunately, some people are in dire situations where they do just take it, and that leads you in the wrong direction.
And again, if the house is old, if it hadn't been maintained, you're not the price that's in Zillow that you would look up online, the fantasy price that Redfin or Zillow gives you. That's what the clients come in with. Look, it's right here. It's on
Right.
the internet.
Right.
This is my house. I want half of that. You're not
Yeah,
going
I
to get
mean,
it.
we still don't know how they come up with that number, right? We still don't really know how Zillow, I know Redfin,
Mhm.
how do they come up with these numbers? I think they're taking a holistic look at the area, at the neighborhood. At the end of the day, they haven't looked at your particular property. It really leads people it puts a seed in their head of thinking is something that may not be there. So I mean,
It's more than that. I mean, I've even had lawyers, opposing counsel. They'll have the printout as the value of the marital home,
mm,
and which is, of course, it's hearsay. It's just we don't even know where, like you said, where the heck does it come from?
right,
Nobody even knows where they get their numbers because there's secret algorithms. I have to fight them on it, to keep it out so the judge doesn't see it. It's hearsay. I mean, it's hearsay within
sure,
computer programs I mean, it's and but the lawyers, they just don't get it. They just
mm,
think, again, that's a value. They want to negotiate off of that value. It's like, well, you got to deduct the selling costs and the repair costs, and how long is it going to sit empty, and how long will you say you move out and fix it up. Who's going to pay for fix-up costs? Minimum, you got to paint it, probably new carpeting, who knows what else, windows, roof, or you'll give them a roof discount. And the other side is just, nope, I want half of this number. You know,
exactly. It's tough because and we've learned obviously just in the business the hard way, right? I
Mhm.
mean, because people have said, no, well, Zillow says this and this is what it is, and so okay,
Yeah,
we order the appraisal and it comes in $50,000 less, and they're like,
right,
what happened? It's like
right,
this,
yeah.
this is the valuation. Appraisals are interesting though overall because I've never been a huge fan of appraisals because I feel like you can have two appraisers go look at one property and come up
Right,
with two different values,
right.
two different evaluations. And I something about that I never thought was right. I felt like in my utopia world, my utopia society,
Mhm.
I felt like there should be like some type of guide or book, some type of book that basically says, hey, in this county, if you have three bedrooms, and they basically itemize everything in someone's house and they
Mhm.
give like a number. Hey, baseline is 150,000, and you go up. Hey, you add 15,000 for every room,
Right.
for kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. I felt like that would be more simplistic of a way to really know, and people don't have an opinion because, obviously, as you've seen in just the news, discrimination lawsuits, was my appraisal value not acceptable because that's what, you didn't like me or you didn't like the pictures on my wall. There is a feeling that I think it's too subjective.
Mhm.
And it's hard for us to do our job. Even sometimes you said our goals and plans are sometimes, it doesn't matter if the value doesn't come in. I
Mhm.
could have the best, hey, this is the strategy. We're going to do this. We're going to be able to get this money and do this, pay this off. But if I can't get, everyone on the same accord
Mhm.
because the value is not there, then it all goes up in smoke. So I feel like from an industry level, I would love to see a different way of objective way of coming up with values. It's too subjective in my personal opinion. It's really at times it feels like you're rolling the dice.
Mhm.
And it's just a necessary evil. You got to pay the money, and then it's kind of like, well, let's just wait until it comes in, and then we'll figure it out from there.
When it starts off suburban tract housing,
Hmm.
you pretty much know the values. But as people do a garage here, or 20 years of no maintenance over here, appliances in the kitchen break down and they substitute them with stovetop burners instead of fixing them, then how are you going to know that to do it? It's real tough. The other thing I run into a lot in divorces is over improvement. We spent $35,000 for a swimming pool. What do you mean it doesn't add any value to the house? Because people would rather pool down the street, the membership pool down the street, than maintain this, monstrosity in your front yard. And trying to convince them that the landscaping didn't make any difference. That kind of, I painted the house. I did it all myself. Well, okay, good, but repainting doesn't do anything.
No, you're right. I mean, we call those white elephants, right? The white
Mhm.
elephant, and so these are the nicest houses in the area. And sometimes you don't want to be the nicest house in the
Right.
area. Everything is based on comparables,
Hmm.
and you have to have comparables. So if you have this beautiful in-ground pool, but you're the only one in the area, you really didn't do yourself a service.
Right. Right.
Hopefully you enjoy it yourself, and hopefully you're having, hey, I got all these amenities for me,
Hmm.
but don't
Hmm.
look for a valuation because you have all these amenities. You really have to keep up with the Joneses, right?
Right.
You
Right.
kind of have to keep up with everyone in your area on their improvements and really not go past them unless you're just doing it for own personal usage, not for hopefully one day trying to take advantage of that appreciation. It still comes into kitchens and bathrooms. Those are the
Mhm.
mainstay of where people spend the most time in a home. So any type of upgrades that you would want to do are kitchens and
Mhm.
bathrooms. And then, obviously, any type of upgrading, just really just the look of the property,
Mhm.
can make a difference. Hey, this has been renovated. This hasn't been renovated.
Right. Mhm.
Obviously, with rates being lower, a lot more renovation lines of credit have been done over the
Mhm.
years. And so people have just, decided not to move and renovated their homes. So
Right.
now when they're looking to sell, that's going to be a difference. What is the condition of the property? So I
Mhm.
think those are the key three things is condition, bathrooms and bedrooms or kitchens,
Mhm.
bathrooms, and the condition of the property. Those are the three main things that people, as far as appraisers, I've spoken to a couple of appraisers and say,
Right.
hey, what are you looking for? And they're like, we want to see the condition of the house, we want to see the kitchen, and we want to see the bathrooms.
Mhm. When you get into that, you might as well just gut the whole kitchen, gut the bathrooms. You're not
Sure.
going to do it by a new fancy energy water saving toilet. It's just got to be
No, no, no.
the new look and overall. So,
Correct.
ugh, and that's another thing. Again, people that lived in a house for 20 years, they don't. My bathroom's fine. What are you talking about?
Right.
It
Right.
worked. It flushed the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, obviously we're relying, in a divorce situation, a marital issue situation, we're relying on this evaluation of this property in order to, separate ties.
Right.
And hey, I want to get X amount of dollars because I put this in.
Hmm.
But are you going to get it out? And it's based on those three key items right now in this marketplace. So really focus on those three things.
Hmm.
But I feel like, it's crazy as we say, even though you're trying to get divorced and separated, we're going to have to come together and
Yeah.
work together to have a
Hmm.
goal so we can execute this correctly. And then we can go our separate ways.
And maximize the money. You keep the house with the kids,
Correct.
and dad gets his money for his boat or whatever. But
Boats, are you by the ocean?
what is it? A boat is a hole in the water you pour money into. Happiest day of a sailor's life. Two happiest days: the day he buys the boat, the day he sells the boat.
I hear it. I hear it. I was like,
Absolutely
boats.
not. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll go on it and let somebody else do it.
It's funny because you reference boats. Obviously, I'm in the Chicagoland area,
Lake
and
Michigan.
so
Huh?
yeah, Lake Michigan, and
Hmm.
that's become a popular trend in the summer times. You do have these boat owners that are renting out, hours of time on their boat,
Hmm.
and they'll take out these parties sometimes for $3,000 to $5,000. But you get
Yeah.
20 people and everyone separate, and they have this amazing time, and obviously you get some fishermen that do it in the mornings and all that
Hmm.
stuff, and so. It has been like I never really heard about that, maybe 10, 20 years ago, but that's become such a huge trend now.
These are privately owned boats?
Privately owned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they
Hmm.
and obviously there's costs of gas and there's
Right,
costs of
right. Mhm.
insurance, but overall,
Beer and
yeah.
steak. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Well, interesting.
But yeah, but that's a new trend in the Chicagoland area, especially in the summer times.
A great way to pay for some of your boat costs too. Your boat
Sure.
expenses. That's the goal. Yeah. And if
Yeah,
you could turn
exactly.
that into living on your boat, and then you could.
There you go. There you go. I mean, obviously, it's 27 degrees today. So, I mean, you're not going to be on a boat today. So, definitely you
Uh,
have to find a place to store it for the winter. So it is funny.
it's got to be up, right? It can't be in the water. The ice
Correct.
will smash it.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's got to be in a garage of some sort.
Okay, so I think I covered, let me just see, make sure I got all the topics that Victoria was assigned to me here. She did say top tips for families going through separation. And I think obviously plan it out ahead of time, start early, right? And then talk to the right people, whether it's a home inspector, if your house is old and beat up, mortgage broker, maybe get a title search done if you think there's something wrong with it there. Survey if that's going to be a problem. Contractors, if somebody comes in and offers you $50,000 less because they want to redo whatever, you say, no, wait a minute, I got this bid for 25,000. So, and then we price the house accordingly. So don't talk to us about that. I mean, again, preparation would be, I guess, really the number one thing, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, preparation, planning, strategy sessions with, a financial team. I think that's my biggest thing for everyone out there. You really have to have your own personal financial team. Most times with a first-time home buyer, they rely on the realtor or their attorney to, give me the team. I don't
Hmm.
know anybody. I don't know a mortgage
Right.
guy,
Hmm.
but I think, in this day and age, especially with, social media, we have the opportunity now to really, meet people and get introduced to people,
Hmm.
and with that, that allows us to kind of build our own financial team, people that we feel comfortable with, to embark on these tasks.
Hmm.
Because it's kind of like our education system kind of let us down, right? I mean, they got us
Right.
into
Hmm.
we go into adult world, and we really don't know how to do some of the basics. We don't know what does it take to get a divorce? How do I buy a house? All
Car
these
loan. Car loan.
car
Yeah.
loans.
I mean,
Um,
look, my monthly payment. They gave me $1,500 back.
correct.
This must be a great deal. Really? It's a 7-year mortgage on a 5-year car. Congratulations.
Exactly. I mean,
So,
it's crazy. I think with that being said, developing a financial team is important, that when you have these situations that do come up, life-changing events,
all right.
that you're able to go ahead and go to, hey, your preferred person and say, hey,
Mhm.
this is what's going on in my life. How can you help me?
This might be an idea for you, and it just occurred to me is to interview, you should interview also a divorce planner. When you have unfortunately, it's normally the woman that has been in the housemaker, doesn't have the financial experience, and now she might be getting a lot of money from the husband. It might be the house, it might be stocks and bonds, it might be a retirement plan. What do you do? She's terrified she's going to run out of money, especially an older lady. They have divorce planners, financial planners, and I mean, you would fit right in with that. That you should contact them, they should contact you, and just have this exact same conversation with them. If you're going to keep the house, you can have rental income. You need 2 years of rental income. It's recorded, but I forgot what you said about part-time income. You need
Two
how many
years.
2 years of
2 years.
that too?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, getting to, and then, well, the good news is you're going to have umpty thousand in your retirement plan, that you're going to get from your husband. But on the other hand, maybe you should go back to school and learn a skill that you could then train, dental hygienist or something. You could translate that into some decent money in 6 months. Yeah, so I think that would fit perfectly in with what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got a podcast, Epic Spotlight, and
Mhm.
we do focus on health, wealth, love, and happiness,
Right,
and
right.
and those are kind of the four pillars of my life, and
Mhm.
that I wanted to share. And really haven't had an attorney on, so that's definitely someone
Oh, all right.
I'm looking
All
for.
right.
So
Okay. Well, again,
yeah,
Maryland and Virginia. I mean, so
yeah,
obviously, every state's going to be very different. Virginia, for just an example, Virginia recognized separated in the same house for many, many years. And of
mm,
course, you'd live in separate bedrooms, separate shopping, separate spending. Obviously, don't wear your wedding ring. And then that would start the clock on how soon you could file for divorce. Whereas for many years, Maryland did not. And so now Maryland just started that. So that would be a question that, we've been living, he's been in the basement, I've been in upstairs for 5 years, and now we finally want to get a divorce. Well, sorry, but you have to be apart from each other a certain time period. I mean, again, each state has its own separate laws, and of course, they're always changing. So yeah, so it's important. Whatever attorney you get, it's got to be that state.
got it.
So be aware of that, and it could be really, really different, and it could change. Like that. Virginia changes their laws every July 1st. So you kind of know to go check recheck everything on July 1st. So that's
Good to
kind of
know.
little secret there. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that you gave me a lot to think about. Obviously, some ways to try to plan it out. Um, I always recommend that the other side get an attorney as early in the process as possible. Even if we're writing up an agreement, I said you want the spouse to take the agreement to an attorney. At least they'll understand it, and that way you're not going to get coming back in a year trying to overturn the agreement. And they'll probably lose, but you don't want to, go through that litigation
Sure.
and worry, especially if you get remarried in the process.
True. Yeah,
So,
it just makes it easier, and it's not all falling on you, I would
so
imagine.
if somebody comes to you, do you give them a printout? Do you give them a display? How do you handle a person?
Yeah, we do printouts. We have
Mhm.
obviously from a number standpoint, we have estimates that we can provide, kind of go over some numbers and stuff like that. But yeah, we're doing more and more things on paper because people are visual nowadays.
Yeah.
I came from a time where it was used to be very audio. Be over the phone or talking to you, and you obtain the information and grasp it. But now people's brains are going, 100 miles per hour.
Mhm.
What did he just say? I thought he said this. So,
Right.
we definitely have to kind of document more of what, here's the
Right.
email. This is what the numbers look like. So we're definitely doing that more nowadays.
Right. I was thinking of something that my client came to you and we could take that printout and give it to the other side.
Sure.
And it's like, look, these are the numbers. You might be able to move it a little bit in one direction or another, or maybe the rates will change, but this is pretty much what you're looking at. You're not
Correct.
getting, this much out of your house. You're getting this much.
Correct.
And if you refinance it and if you sell it, you're going to get about the same.
I mean, there's just levels. I mean, obviously, if you're doing a first, just a first mortgage refinance, the
Mhm.
maximum cash out is 80%. I mean,
Mhm.
so period. If
Right.
you did a line of credit, the max we can do is 90%.
Mhm.
So the only way you're going to get 100%, and I would say 100% cash out refinance, the only way we could do that is with a veteran. And obviously, we do
No.
have veterans in Maryland
Uh-huh.
and Virginia for that matter.
Right. Mhm.
But besides a veteran situation,
Mhm.
you're going to have to sell,
Right.
if you want 100% of that. So it's like, sometimes we have to have those conversations because some people have embedded in there, well, this house is worth 500,000. So, and I only owe 300,000. So that's 200. And it's like,
Right.
well, if we're doing a refinance, we're only going to get a loan amount of 400,000. So
Mhm.
it's only 100,000. So
Right.
we
Right.
do have to make sure that the numbers make sense and everyone knows what they're going to be getting.
And in your example, it would be 500,000 Zillow value. Guaranteed.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, very good. Gave us a lot to think of. Work a lot of this into my information that I send to the clients. I send them checklists, and so they don't miss any issues. Obviously custody visitation, but what are you going to do about the pets? What are you going to do about tax refunds? What do you do if you get audited and you owe back taxes? Who pays to split a pension plan?
Hmm.
Because they're charging fees now. The pension plan to what you do in a divorce is you can split a pension plan into the husband's ex-husband and ex-wife, and it
Hmm.
remains tax deferred down through the years, just like two pension. But to do that now, the pension plans are putting their own fees on it,
Hmm.
500 or $1,000, which is a nasty surprise. So
It
that,
is.
that you got to deal with too. But anyway, so I'm probably going to do a checklist on what do you do with a house? What are your options? What is a appraisal versus what is Zillow? Why Zillow's no good, and the things you just said. So, all right, I'll be back in touch. So, thank you very much. This was very good.
Hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
And please subscribe, check like button, and if you have any questions or comments, put them put them down below.